and development of bone and teeth. Okay, they help in formation, development of bone and teeth. So in addition to this function, they are having another function also, that is they involve in the excitability of the nerves. Okay, so this magnesium ion helps in excitability of the nerve. So together with some other cations, magnesium ions also affect the excitability of the nerve. That means the low concentration of magnesium will increase the excitability, and high concentration of magnesium will decrease the excitability of the nerves. Okay, so same as the next function is magnesium enzyme. Okay, same as the calcium and phosphorus, it also acts as a cofactor, which will help in of enzymes. Okay, so magnesium is a cofactor for all enzymes requiring ATP as a second substrate. Okay, as ATP participates in biochemical reactions and magnesium 2 plus ATP complex. Okay, so all the reactions which involve in the production or which will utilize the ATP, okay, as a second mass substrate. So in that case, magnesium will act as a cofactor. It will help in the enzyme activity. It will increase the enzymal activity. Okay, and the enzymes which require the magnesium as a cofactors, they are hexokinase. It will be in that conversion of glucose to glucose 6 phosphate. It will be seen in the glycolysis. Then phosphofructokinase. It is also in the enzyme of glycolysis. Then pyruvate kinase. Then thiokinase. Then methylulate kinase. It is a enzyme of cholesterol squalene synthetase. This is also enzyme of cholesterol synthesis. Then glutamine synthase. Then carbamyl phosphate synthase. Then PRPP synthase. Inolase. PRP synthase is hormone for the this one enzyme for the this one nucleotide metabolism. Okay, that we'll discuss there. Inolase is the enzyme of this one carbohydrate metabolism. Then glucose 6 phosphate dehydrogenase. Then transketolase. Okay, these all enzymes require magnesium as a cofactor. Okay, for the activation or the for the increasing the rate of enzymal activity. Okay, so these are the three functions of the magnesium. That is, first one is the bone and teeth formation. Second, involved in the excitability of nerves. That means whenever there is a low concentration of magnesium, the nerve excitability will be increased. But whenever there is a higher concentration of magnesium, it will decrease the excitability of the nerves. The third one is the magnesium as a cofactor. Okay, so it will act as a cofactors for the some of the important biochemical reactions or some of the important biochemical metabolism reaction, in which this will enhance the bioenzymatic reactions so that the process will be more faster and more accurate. Okay, so these are the three main functions of the magnesium. Next is the absorption. So magnesium is mostly absorbed in the small intestine. Okay, and on average diet, about half of magnesium is absorbed. Okay, so whenever you are taking the magnesium through diet in the daily basis, so around half of the magnesium will be a small intestine. Okay, and they are excreted magnesium fall on the high magnesium diet. Okay, this is the diet. And is the okay. So kidney will magnesium in aldosterone is a hormone which play a significant role in maintaining the normal level of magnesium in the blood. Okay, so as high aldosterone level decreases the tubular reabsorption of magnesium. Okay, so whenever there is increased concentration concentration of aldosterone, it will decrease the tubular reabsorption of magnesium, which will leads to increase in concentration of magnesium. Next is the abnormal serum levels. So there are two types: hypomagnesemia and hypermagnesemia. So hypomagnesemia means serum level below the normal level of the magnesium. Okay, so it is less than 2 milligram per deciliter. Then that condition is called as hypomagnesemia, and the conditions are chronic alcoholism, chronic diarrhea, hyperparathyroidism, and aldosteronism. Okay, and hypermagnesemia means a high serum magnesium level, and this is mainly seen in renal failure. Okay, because it will affect the reabsorption process of magnesium in the kidney tubules. Okay, so that will ultimately leads to increase in the magnesium level. Okay, so this is all about the magnesium, that is introduction, daily requirement, sources, then the biological function which is important, come in the 2 mark question, and serum as well, you can say clinical manifestations of serum magnesium. Okay, understood? So one more thing, that is the symptom of the deficient decreased magnesium, serum magnesium level is same as the decreased calcium or phosphorus level. That means the symptoms is seen in the high magnesemia are neuromuscular irritability will be there. Okay, then convulsion, then symptoms of the treated with the magnesium, then it can be overcome by doing the supplementation diet or the medicine by the magnesium. Okay, supplementation with magnesium can recover the person from hypomagnesemia. Okay, these are the magnesium. Next one is sulfur. Okay, so mostly the sulfur proteins, dietary proteins that we are taking. Okay, so okay, and inorganic sulfur is in the form of sulfate ion is present in very small quantity, but the organic sulfur is predominant form of sulfur in the body, and it is mostly present in the protein in the form of sulfur containing amino acid. Okay, that is cysteine and the methionine. Okay, so sulfur containing amino acid, that's why I told you the main source of or main medium by which we can take the sulfur in our body is through the protein diet, which is rich in sulfur containing amino acids. Okay, because cysteine and methionine contain the sulfur. They will attach with the sulfur group, and by that, through that medium, we can take the sulfur in our body. Okay, and these sulfur are mostly next comes the recombinant daily requirement, that is the daily excretion of sulfur is around 5 milligram in average adult. Okay, so most of it's derived from the proteins, that is proteinous diet. If protein is inadequate, it means sulfur will be, it will provide the sulfur in sufficient amount. Okay, whenever there is a decreased concentration of protein in your diet, then that will lead to decreased sulfur concentration in your body. Okay, so mostly all the then the dietary sources. So it is the sulfur of proteins that meets our sulfur requirement. Means all the dietary proteins which contain sulfur can act as a source for sulfur in our body. So these sources are protein-rich food, that is egg, milk, cheese, meat, then fish, nuts, and the legumes. Okay, so these all are the main source of sulfur in our daily diet. Okay, next comes the absorption. So sulfur is absorbed from the intestine mainly in the form of sulfur containing amino acid, that is in the form of cysteine and methionine and cysteine. Three sulfur containing amino acids there: cysteine, cysteine, and methionine. But most important one is the cysteine and methionine. Okay, so they are absorbed in your absorbed from the diet, that is in the intestine, in the form of sulfur containing amino acid, and they provide the sulfur in your body. Okay, so the absorption of inorganic phosphate, inorganic sulfate is very poor as compared to organic sulfate, because inorganic sulfur doesn't have that much important function in our body. That's why their absorption is very less or very poor in our body, in the small intestine. Next comes the functions. Okay, so first function is they are the components of proteins. Okay, so as you know, the proteins are made up of amino acids, many amino acids. We can say the polypeptides. Okay, so the proteins are mostly rich in sulfur-containing amino acids. That's why they are the function of sulfur is they are the component of proteins. Okay, that is in the form of cysteine and methionine. Okay, and one more thing, these sulfur are the important for the protein synthesis. If you have remembered, in the nucleic acids and in the this one protein structures, we have seen there the disulfide bond. So that is because of the inorganic sulfate. Okay, so that is also the function of sulfur, formation of disulfide bond, then sulfhydryl bond. Okay, in case of this one nucleotides. So all these two bonds are responsible for the or helping for the protein synthesis. Okay, so the first function is component of protein, that is in the form of sulfur containing amino acid, and it will provide the or it will help in the protein synthesis by the way of formation of disulfide bond and the sulfhydryl bond, SH bond and SS bond. Okay, the second one is the component of mucopolysaccharides. So if you have remembered, there are some sulfur containing heteropolysaccharides. Okay, so they all are the sources, or you can say the component. That is, they act as a component for the some of the mucopolysaccharides or the sulfur containing heteropolysaccharides. Examples are heparin, chondroitin sulfate, and keratin sulfate. Okay. Then next one is the constituents of many vitamins. Okay, so these sulfur, same as the mucopolysaccharides, they act as a constituents or the component of the many vitamins like thiamine, biotin, lipoic acids. Okay, then the active form of pantosine, that is coenzyme A and acyl carrier proteins. So all these five vitamins, that is thiamine, biotin, lipoic acid, and the active form of pantosine, that is coenzyme A and acyl carrier proteins, they all contains the sulfur. Okay, then the sulfur will help in detoxification process. Most important function, it will also help in detoxification process. Okay, in the form of glutathione. Okay, glutathione is there. Okay, so they will help in making the toxic substances to a lesser toxic substances. Detoxification means conversion of toxic substances to a less toxic substances. Okay, so in that case, sulfur will play an important role. Okay, in detoxification of toxic substances in the liver. Okay, then there are other functions, that is phosphoadenosine phosphosulfate. There is one compound, phosphoadenosine phosphosulfate, which acts as a sulfur containing, sorry, which acts as a donor for the sulfate. Okay, which acts as a donor for the sulfate, and it will also help in synthesis of glucosaminoगlycan. Okay, glucosaminoglycan, and this also helps in detoxification process. Okay, then this sulfur is also required for the transmethylation reaction. Okay, this sulfur is required for the transmethylation reaction also. Okay, so these are the various functions of the sulfur in our body. That is, first one is the component of proteins, then component of mucopolysaccharides, then constituents of many vitamins, and helps in detoxification process. Okay, understood? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is all about the sulfur containing, sorry, sulfur minerals. Okay, this is the micro minerals, macro and micro, because this the requirement of the daily requirement of these minerals are very less. That is below 100 milligram per day. That's why they are come under the micro minerals. Okay, and these are coming in the short essay question or the 2 marks, mostly in the 2 marks question. Mostly the functions, then mostly the functions will come in the 2 marks mostly. Next is the chromium. Okay, so chromium, the total amount of chromium in the body is around 6 milligram. Okay, and they are distributed in the body. Very less quantity of chromium is present in the body. Okay, and dietary source, sorry, daily absorption, sorry, daily requirement is very less, as the total percentage itself are less. So daily requirement is also very less. That is 0.05 to 20 milligram per day. Okay, then absorption and excretion are they have the poor absorption through diet, and majority of absorbed chromium is excreted through the urine. So that's why whenever you are taking the lesser quantity, sorry, more quantity of chromium in your diet, they are not absorbed in our body. They are not absorbed by our body in the either in the explantation or any part of the GI tract, and mostly they are excreted through the urine. That's why the total body concentration is only about 6 milligram. Okay, that's because major quantity of the chromium is excreted in the urine. Then the functions. Okay, so chromium will control the glucose and lipid metabolism. Okay, so chromium function main function is they will control the glucose and lipid metabolism, various glucose and lipid metabolism. Then second one is it acts as a cofactor for insulin. Okay, this chromium will act as a cofactor for insulin by increasing the glucose utilization. Means it will activate the insulin. Okay, and they will promote the cells in the body, and they will increase the utilization of glucose, and they will also help in transport of amino acid into the cell. Okay, so the main function is they will act as a cofactor for insulin, which will enhance the utilization of glucose by the cell, and also they will transport the amino acid, that is, will transport the amino acid into the cell. Okay, then third one, the inorganic chromium convert organic chromium complex and form glucose tolerance factor, which can enhance the action of insulin. Okay, so this chromium will convert the inorganic chromium with two form of chromium is there, inorganic and organic chromium. So inorganic chromium will be converted to organic chromium complex, and they will lead to formation of glucose tolerance factor, GTF. Okay, and that will ultimately enhance the action of insulin, which will result in decreasing the glucose level in our body. Okay, and last one, it will also lower the cholesterol level in our body. Okay, that is blood cholesterol level can be lowered by chromium. Okay, next is the deficiency. So deficiency of chromium can develop glucose intolerance because if there is deficiency of chromium, that cannot form the glucose tolerance factor. So there is no activation of insulin, okay, in the body, and that will ultimately leads to glucose intolerance. That means body cannot tolerate the increased concentration of glucose, and that will ultimately leads to weight loss because glucose is not utilized by the cell. Okay, that's why there will be weight loss. Okay, then the treatment are supplementation of chromium in the diet. Next, the toxicity. Okay, so whenever there is a higher concentration or the any other form of chromium in our diet, that are toxic to our body. Okay, so hexavalent form of chromium, Cr6 plus, have the strong oxidizing properties, is more toxic than the trivalent chromium. Means trivalent chromium and hexavalent chromium both are toxic, but hexavalent chromium is more toxic as compared to trivalent, and this toxicity may leads to inflammation and necrosis of skin and nasal passages. Okay, so whenever there is increased concentration of chromium in our body, the toxicity exert, and that will leads to inflammation and necrosis of the skin and the nasal passage, that is air passage. Okay, and second one, it will also affect it will also leads to allergic contacts, that is skin allergy. Okay, that is allergic contacts dermatitis. Then it also leads to lungs cancer, not lean cancer. This is a lung cancer. Okay, and then oral ingestion may cause the gastrointestinal tract damage and renal failure. Okay, so these are the five or four uh, side effects of excess of chromium in our body. That is inflammation and necrosis of skin and nasal passages. Then allergic, that is dermatitis allergic reactions. Then lung cancer, and whenever you ingest chromium through your oral, that through your oral route, that may cause the GI tract damage and ultimately the renal failure. Okay, so this is all about the chromium. Next one, this is the last one, is the cadmium. This is necessary for the biological activity of the vitamin B12. That is, it will help in the formation of vitamin B12. Okay, that's why you have heard in that is the other name for active form of vitamin D is cyanocobalamin. No, so that's why this cobalt is necessary effect. They have a necessary function with the vitamin B12. Okay, and this cobalt will fit into the corin. There is a ring formation in the cobalt, so vitamin B12. They will fit to the ring structure, corin ring, that is called as corin ring. They will fit into the corin ring structure. Okay, next one is the dietary source. Sorry, daily recommended. That is not known. That is unknown. Okay, then dietary sources are liver, pancreas, and vitamin B12. Then a function is an integral part of vitamin B12. That is, they bind to the corin ring of vitamins, and it will help in formation of it will help in the proper functioning of the vitamin B12. Okay, then absorption. they are poorly absorbed and stored in the liver. Okay, they are poorly absorbed and they are stored in the liver, but they are excreted in the bile, not in the urine. Okay, they are not excreted through the urine. They are excreted into the bile because the storage place is liver. That's why they are excreted into the bile. Okay. Then next one is the deficiency. It is accompanied by all the signs and symptoms of vitamin B12 deficiency. Okay, that is megaloblastic anemia there. Okay, so the anemia will result due to deficiency of cobalt in your body, and not that is because of only cobalt. That is also because of vitamin B12. Okay, because both of them are correlated to each other. Then toxicity, excessive cobalt leads to polycythemia, one of the type of cancer. Okay, and blood cancer you can say. So this is all about for today class. So anybody have any doubt, they can ask. Else you can leave the class.
सर आपने जो बताया ना इंसुलिन में वो एमिनो एसिड ट्रांसफर करता है कोफैक्टर क्रोमियम, सर वो बता दीजिए ना.
Okay, chromium. Okay. Okay, the
हाँ
act
सर
as a cofactor, na? That you are saying.
हाँ सर